Hello everyone, so welcome once again to the channel. Today we have Adebimpe and Austine, who are two DAAD PhD scholarship holders, and we brought them on here to share their experiences with us related to applying for the DAAD scholarship and the processes that were required and the experience in Germany so far. So briefly, I would like Alaja and Austine to tell us what they study here and what they studied in Nigeria.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Adebimpe. An officer at Adebimpe. I did my bachelor at Obafemi University, Ilefe. I studied plant science. I also did my master's also at Obafemi University, Ilefe. I studied science and technology for my master's, and currently I'm in the Technical University of Munich, studying biotechnology of horticultural crops. Yeah.
So hi viewers, I'm Austine, and I had my first degree in pure and applied mathematics from Lautech, Ladoke Akintola University of Technology, Ogumosho, and I did my master's at the African Institute for Mathematical Sciences in Senegal. So I majored in mathematical sciences, but in the application aspect. And so for my PhD, so I'm doing it in applied mathematics also, in biology application. So I'm applying it to biological systems, and at the Technical University of Munich. And so I'm also a DAAD scholar. I'm just getting towards the end of my first year. Yeah.
So viewers, we have two distinguished Nigerians with us here actually. One of them is an horticulture expert and the other is a mathematician. So just stay tuned and hear what they have to say about the whole scholarship process and how they've been through it. Thank you very much.
The scholarship is packaged with studying language course for at least, it could be 6 months program, it could be 4 months, and it could be 2 months. But the one that we did was 4 months language course program before we moved on to our university term.
Okay. And when you did this language course, was it necessary for you to take an exam after the language course?
Actually, their requirements, it depends on the university you are. If the university actually required you to do a certified language certification before you are enrolled into their academic system, then you might need to do a certified examination to let them know that actually you have the knowledge of the language. But if it is not really required, you might do the certification later on after you started your program.
Okay. And so back to Austine now. So when did you arrive here, and did you also have to do a language course?
Yeah, sure. I arrived same time with Adebimpe, and so we started the language course in June and until the end of September. And then after then we go to our respective universities to start the program. So I guess it's just same. Yeah, sure. Yeah, so exactly. We have just been together all along, and so yeah.
The next thing I would like the viewers to find out is how did you learn about the scholarship? Because many scholarships exist, many countries exist. So how do you know that if I want to come to Germany to do a PhD, I can get funding from DAAD? Where did you find this out?
Actually, I learned this from my supervisor in Nigeria. He was also a DAAD scholar then, so he introduced me to DAAD scholarship. So I got it from my supervisor in Nigeria.
Yeah, so for the DAAD scholarship, probably I had it, I just, I found it on just some social media stuff, and, so it came like an advert. And so I read through the requirements, and I was like, okay, so how about it takes? So let me just give this thing a try. And yeah, so basically I just saw it somewhere, and although a friend of mine told me about it, but so at the same time also on social media, and this thing pops up depending on, you could be, so we have several scholarship platforms, websites, so you could register for these things, and from time to time you get updates, and from stuff like that. Yeah.
So I think one thing that's very important for the viewers is to understand how do you apply for this kind of scholarship. And before we get to that topic, Austine was telling me about structured and unstructured PhD programs. So can you briefly tell us quickly what you think the difference between the two of them is, and what kind of PhD program are you enrolled in particular?
Okay, yeah, so I will just briefly talk about what the two entails. Although both actually target awarding the doctorate degree, but at some point they're a bit different. But for the structured PhD, as the name implies, it's structured, and it has to do with a team of a research team or a group of professors supervising a PhD student or some group of PhD students rather. And before the start of the program has been structured in a way. I mean, all the seminars, the workshops you attend, conferences. So there is a standard structured timetable for this program. A timeline, exactly. And so on expectation, it takes about 3 to 5 years to complete, And for the individual PhD, on the other hand, is not structured. And so the individual PhD is just, okay, you as a student, you identify a professor who is in your research line or probably a related topic, research topic. And so you get in touch with this professor, you discuss potential topics, and you go through extensive literature review. And so you come up with your own project, your research project. Unlike the structured, everything has been laid down. The student in question here doesn't, in one way or the other, contribute to the initiation of the research project. So once the program is advertised, and the student comes in, so probably it's just coming, meeting a topic already, a topic that is already structured. But the individual PhD, you start from the scratch. You develop your topic, and they call it the traditional path to getting a PhD. Exactly, flexibility, although it requires more effort and discipline, yeah, because to come up with research proposals and, nice scientific questions, if you're in the science area, or regardless, just any question, research questions you want to answer. And for me, I'm doing individual PhD, and so I got a supervisor, and we sorted out the project, and so we are working on it. Although at some point the individual PhD could somehow coincide with the structured PhD, so everything depends on how it is planned, I guess. So, but it's also nice to know that this is the difference between these two. Yeah.
People are going to be curious again about this stuff. I get questions like, how did you apply for the scholarship? How, what documents did you send? What came first? Were you accepted by a professor first before you apply for the scholarship, or did you get the scholarship and then get in touch with the professor? How did it go? So I think the first thing I'd like to talk about is not the documents now, but just tell us, what's the first thing? Do you get in touch with the professor first, or do you apply for the scholarship first? What did you do in your own individual cases?
Okay. When I was introduced to DAAD, I was told then that I will need to look for a supervisor, at least someone that will be interested in my research and topic. So we started sending out some mails to some professors over here, and luckily for me, my supervisor then came down to Germany. So from Nigeria, came down to Germany. So he saw one advert. He saw kind of an advert while he was passing through one of the institutions. So he got the contact of the professor in charge, and then he tried to book an appointment with the professor, and they talk about the project in question, and why we need continuity, and the reason why we actually need to do that kind of project. And luckily for me, the woman was actually interested in the research area, and so she welcomed my what's it called, proposal. So after that, she wanted to know whether I am actually qualified for the rigor of the program. So, I was still back at home. My supervisor was here. So when he came back, he tried to book like a kind of interview section with me. And so we spoke on phone. She was a little bit confident about what I actually wanted to do. So then she was like, okay, she needs to verify my documents first to know whether I will be able I will meet the requirements of the institution. So I sent some of my documents. Luckily for me, I've already collected some of the documents then. So I sent my transcripts to her, and then she tendered it at the Akademischer's office, and then they certified, I am actually eligible for the program. So then it was after that we actually started the process of applying for DAAD. So it was after we've already, be sure that we have someone that will actually supervise the project. That was when we started the application for DAAD.
So Austine, how was it?
I think mine is quite different from what she just mentioned here. And so I remember back then, I read the requirements of the DAAD, and I realized one of the criteria to applying for the grant is getting a supervisor. A potential supervisor. And since I'm not in Germany, and I'm aware that the emails can travel as far as possible, so what I did was, I just search for professors in my research area. And how you do this is you can use Google search. Nothing so special about it, and no one ever told me about my current supervisor. Everything I did was just online, and I went there. I saw the guy was actually a perfect person for me to work with. So I got his contact, and I wrote him an email, expressed myself and what I intend doing, and it was so should I say was impressed. At least he was convinced to an extent that, let's give it a try. And, we started working on a research proposal. And, like I mentioned earlier, the individual PhD stuff, you have to go through some rigorous literature review, trying to pull out the research questions to address. And so it took quite some time, although we were able to pull through. And, so after everything's set, then you apply to the program.
So guys, there you have it. There's there's a number of approaches to go about it, but one thing is important. You have to be in talks with a professor first of all, and you get the okay from the professor that I'm ready to take you as a student. After that, you apply for the DAAD scholarship. So one way of getting in touch with these professors is if you have your advisor in Nigeria, you can talk to them and they can link you up here. Another way is to go on Google yourself, check mathematics PhD in Germany, anything PhD in Germany, and look at the schools that come out and get in touch with the professors. Once you find someone that wants you and you are ready, you can apply for the DAAD scholarship.